It is Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank here on the Voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160. I'm Josh Woodison with you, and this edition of Indiana in the Morning, this portion, I should say, with the interview presented by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Of course, the big issue that has been, one of the big issues, I should say, has been connected with coronavirus and is how it's going to impact how schools operate, as we know that could change just at the drop of a hat. And with Indiana County now having a higher number of coronavirus cases thanks to some spikes in and around IUP campus, how is that going to affect some of the other school districts? Well, joining us right now is Curt Whitesel of the Homer Center School District. He is their superintendent. Curtis, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, Josh. Thanks.
All right, so Let's talk about this. Yesterday, you and several other superintendents from Indiana County met with the Department of Education and the Department of Health, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about what happened.
They scheduled a conference call for all of us to go over the current percentage positive numbers for Indiana County, which for the second week in a row we remained in the substantial category. At which time they recommend remote learning across the state if you hit the substantial category. But they also reminded us that it's always going to be a local school district decision. They just make a recommendation, not a requirement. So they recommended that the county schools go remote learning for 14 days if we deemed it necessary. And at this time, most districts are going to stay. I think all districts are going to stay as we have been, because the number of cases, at least in Homer Center School District, currently on our dashboard is 0.
Although there have been 2 reported cases among teachers, there have been no reported cases among students then in Homer Center. And just in our own little research that we've done, it looks like the rest of the districts in Indiana County have had minimal to no cases among students.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. Now, I can't sit here and tell you honestly that we haven't had students quarantined. We've had students that have had indirect and direct contact who have contacted us and they've been quarantined. We've had some students tested that come back negative, so we've been lucky there. And as I said, right now we have no active cases on our dashboard, so it would be just a difficult decision to say we're just going to go remote for 14 days when we're currently not seeing an outbreak within our district.
Now, we have seen other school districts one other school district in Indiana County announced before this meeting, in fact, that they were going to make a little bit of a change, but that is, again, for a 2-week period. Is 2 weeks really enough of a time span? Should something happen that would warrant that as a decision for you or any of the other superintendents? So go ahead. I mean, would it warrant that sort of a decision?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, if we get either school, the high school or the elementary, would get 5 active cases at any one time, we would immediately go to a 14-day or 2-week remote learning so we can get the buildings cleaned, keep kids separated for 2 weeks, and hopefully get on top of any breakout. So I do think 14 days is an appropriate number, at least in the eyes of the Department of Health and in the CDC, so we kind of follow their guidelines. Mm-hmm. Keeping students apart for a series of 2 weeks, I think, would certainly minimize the possibilities of more kids getting coronavirus or COVID-19. So I think that's an appropriate amount of time.
Let's talk about a little bit with the another big issue that has come up. Of course, you've probably been following it as closely as anybody else, and that's been the sports issue as well, since we have you on the line. Governor Wolf's veto of the bill that would allow school districts to make decisions on how many people can attend sporting events or if sporting events can be held in this time. What was your reaction to the governor's decision?
I expected it, but just to give my personal take, keeping volleyball players out in the hall during a game is ridiculous. A gymnasium the size that most schools have, I have no doubt that you can easily social distance parents so they can at least watch their children play. You can social distance the players and still have plenty of room, open that people aren't sitting right next to each other. So I kind of always felt that the volleyball, 25 people indoors was little out of line. Football, on the other hand, I agree that we certainly have the capacity to put more than 250 people in the stadium and keep them socially distanced. I, from the beginning, felt that the players and the officials should not count toward that 250. But, hopefully there's some changes coming down via PIAA and District 6. I know the Heritage Conference has made some decisions to make changes, and you can certainly reach out to the Heritage Conference. I don't want to speak for them, and they can give you what they come up with at their meeting yesterday. But they've also made some changes as far as spectators attending games.
Mm-hmm. You're listening to Indiana in the Morning. I'm Josh Whitesel, and I'm talking with Curtis Whitesel, Superintendent of the Homer Center School District. And let's go back to yesterday's meeting. When you had talked about meeting with the Departments of Health and Education in the past, you had said that they understood the fact that this high spike in cases in Indiana County was mainly concentrated in one area, and the outlying areas did not have any sort of spikes as far as that went. It sounded like, though, that they did not take that into account whenever that statistic is clearly being recorded by the Department of Health. But they did not take that statistic into effect that does concern where it is being located. And right now, that big spike is in White Township, Indiana Borough, not in Center Township.
Yeah, I don't want to sit here and say they didn't take it seriously or didn't pay attention to it, because they did, and they were aware of it. I brought up the question to them, are we allowing IUP to impact our decisions for our local schools in the outlying areas? Now, obviously, Homer Center is very close to Indiana School District. I mean, we're only a few miles apart, so we're much more close to the epicenter than some of the other districts. But right now, we're not feeling the impact, and I think our families are staying away from downtown Indiana as much as possible, just to try and keep their families safe. They did listen to us, but ultimately, if you look across the state, like Center County with Penn State, the numbers are astronomical, and most of your hotbed areas in the state are college towns. And fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, we have that college right here in our backyard, mm-hmm. and that creates a higher number of cases.
So with this being said, are there going to be further conference calls, I guess, with the superintendents and the Departments of Health and Education as the weeks continue?
Yes, we will have a follow-up call Thursday to look at a preliminary look at the numbers for next week. Hopefully those numbers go down below the 10% positive rate. If they do, then we would go back to the moderate category. Our ultimate goal is to get to the low category, which is below 5%, but at least work our way back down to moderate. So we'll continue to be in touch with them, usually once or twice a week, and then once we would get to the low area, I think that maybe the calls would subside for a while, and we could just move on as normal.
But again, the decision of the district superintendents, and yourself included, is to say we'll just keep everything as is for now, and we'll continue to monitor things on our side as far as our own district populations can go and as far as our student populations go when it comes to coronavirus infections.
Yes, that is correct. We all met yesterday after the meeting and pretty much agreed to stay the course. It's working for us. Some districts are hybrid right now. Some districts are back. Green was what we call our phase, where we're back face-to-face, giving kids options to synchronously learn online if they're not comfortable coming in, or to attend our Homer Center Academy of Choice. So our kids do have options, but the majority of our students have chosen to come back to face-to-face learning and be here with their friends and be in school and try and get some normalcy back in their life.
All right, Curtis Whitesel, thank you very much for joining us here on Indiana in the Morning this morning to discuss this very important issue. We wish you all the best, and we hope that everybody stays safe over at Homer Center.
Thanks, Josh. Take care, buddy.
You too.
Josh.